Welcome to Why I Left, a podcast that explores the Great Resignation. I'm your host, Brian Akar. Join me as I chronicle real stories from real people about the reasons they decided to leave their jobs during the pandemic and what has happened since. Hello, and thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Why I Left podcast. In today's episode, I chat with Keith Allen Johns. Keith is a former chief operating officer for a tech company who realized that work shouldn't suck. So he founded Keith Allen and Company to help people find their purpose, turn it into a business idea, start that business on the side, and then exit the corporate world. Now, he's helped many leaders break free from the corporate world by building and scaling purpose-driven businesses. Hope you all enjoy our conversation. Let's go check it out. All right, welcome back. So our guest today is Keith Allen Johns. Keith is the CEO and founder of Keith Allen and Company, whose passion lies in helping corporate leaders who are feeling stuck in their 9-to-5 break free. Now, Keith has a great story of enlightenment after overcoming adversity, which led him to becoming and flourishing as an entrepreneur. Now, I'm excited to have him share his great resignation experience from the C-suite point of view. So hi, Keith. How you doing today?
Brian, I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Pretty good. I really appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk.
So now, before we get into any of the great resignation talk, right? Tell us a little bit about, where you're from and where you currently call home.
Yeah, I'm actually from a suburb of Toledo, Ohio called Maumee. A little Rust Belt, right? A little Lake Erie type of upbringing, a lot of corn around us. But I moved to Charlotte 11 years ago, and I really love living down south. I love the weather. And it's a great land of opportunity down south.
No, that's great. And it actually warms my heart. I'm actually a Midwest guy, right? So I'm originally from Indiana, then moved to Michigan, but very familiar with the Maumee track. There's like a shopping center we used to go that was there on occasion. Yeah.
Yeah. Indiana, Michigan, Ohio, that whole area is really nice.
Definitely. So how about you tell us a little bit about, some of the things that you've been passionate about in the work that you do?
You're talking about like what I do now?
Well, in the past, like
I mean, the technology piece has always interested me, right? Because there's when you're developing software, developing websites, there's that immediate gratification that you don't necessarily get when it comes to sending a product out to the shelves or whatever. You got to fix something, you can fix it right away. And I think I enjoyed that. But what really emerged over time was my appreciation for impacting other people and what it took, the skill set it took to get a whole group, a whole team pointed in the right direction. And that, that leadership wasn't really you standing in front of 100 people. For me, leadership became an individual thing, one person at a time, getting to know them and influence them, and then getting them all to work together as a team. So after I sort of restarted my life about 11 years ago and started to scale back up into leadership, I had a new perspective and a new point of view. It's such a human to human type of thing, no matter how big the company is. So learning how to connect with people, learning how to coach and get them to grow definitely was a foundational part of my maturity as a professional. I enjoy doing all kinds of things. You and I were talking before we started. Like, I love writing. I went to school for journalism. Obviously, I'm not a journalist. I thought I would be in magazine publishing. I got my start as a copywriter. Lucky accident, right? What a powerful skill writing is that's continued to follow me through my entire career and still helps me a lot today. But I mean, I've done like a lot of people, I've done all kinds of things and worked in all kinds of interesting industries.
No, that's great. And now, prior to launching your own company, and we'll definitely get to talking about that a little later, tell us a little bit about your work journey and what's worked well in the environments you've been a part of.
Yeah, so I was at the executive suite before I left corporate and had 6 or 7 really outstanding years working for a tech company. And before that, I was really called, I think, to leadership in lots of different ways. Some people just seem to end up being the person others look to. And I give my mom credit for that, having good people skills and being able to show up in people's lives in a way that'll impact them. But I worked in publishing, I worked in the nonprofit space, and those skills, I think, translate well across all those different industries. For me, I think it's why I'm called to coaching putting that human spin on everything and starting with people first. I think we tend to think that it's customer first. And I think I learned early on that that's really not the case, that if you don't have good people, if you don't have good relationships, you don't have a business, you don't have a company, and the customers don't really matter if you don't get that part right. And then once you get past taking care of your internal team, which in my case right now means just taking care of me,
Right.
then it becomes you get to focus on the customer. The customer comes in second, and you should be obsessed with the customer at that point, who they are, what they're like, what their needs are. And that's an important part of what I coach. But getting the internal game right, whether that be in the team, in the company, or for me at the individual, I think is the big lesson. I was talking about a lot about this on LinkedIn today, as a matter of fact, that the internal game, I think, is a differentiator. And it goes at levels. You know, it's inside the company, inside the team, inside the individual. The things on the outside don't shift and change for an organization or for a one-person shop until you really understand what's going on inside and connect with yourself, connect with others, and figure out how to work together, how to produce something that has value. Then you worry about your customers.
No, that's great. That's great. And so now what I'd like to do is let's go back in time, right? So let's go back to March 2020. You know, the world comes to a halt then, and we're really introduced to COVID. And, you know, we don't know if we call it a pandemic at that time. I'm sure we thought it was going to be a few weeks and we'd be back to normal, but clearly that wasn't the case. So describe how the pandemic affected you.
Yeah. And a lot of people say this, it's hard to say, like that it really opened doors for a lot of people. Despite the fact that it was so tragic, what it did was it broke down some of the accepted norms for how we work. The rules went out the window. I know I met with my fellow executives at the company I was at, and we were like that, close the office. Health and welfare of our employees come first. We were pretty early in making that decision. Other companies soon followed, and then the whole country soon followed. And I got to work right here, right? This was my new space, and it was a test for us as a company. How could we perform? And what was fascinating was watching everyone come together and perform really, really highly. And we had to get used to new ways of staying in touch and new ways of communicating with each other. And so that was great. But it pulled the blinders aside on, tell me again why I have to commute an hour there and an hour back. Because now Charlotte traffic isn't Atlanta traffic, but Charlotte traffic is no joke. And I live in the north end of town, so I was spending 2 hours a day driving. It's a big chunk of my life. And so I got those hours back. Coincidentally, I'd been working with a coach. She was coaching me up the executive ladder. I knew she had her own business. We talked about a side hustle every now and again. But when the heck was I supposed to squeeze a second job into my time? Well, so now you mean I've got 2 extra hours a day? That's 10 hours a week. And I've taken that time back for me. I wonder what I could get accomplished. And so for me, it was the meetup of a little bit of falling out of love with working for somebody else and of being plugged into the corporate system. I loved my job. I loved who I worked for, but it wasn't ticking all the boxes.
So what were some of the things that you started to learn?
You mean when it came to being working from home, or when it came to my little midlife crisis?
Well, I would say maybe the little midlife crisis, right? So now you're getting those 10 hours back. So
right,
what were some of the things you started to learn?
Well, and even before then, I kind of felt almost a little guilty. Like I was good at what I did and I performed highly, but it wasn't coming from my heart. And to say I felt like a fraud, maybe like I was faking it a little bit. Like, did I really care about the work I was doing? To some degree, but a lot of it, it didn't really matter to me what our final product was, what our service was. I felt like a gopher popping his head up out of the hole and saying, am I the only one who wonders if this is the only way to make ends meet? That if I'm putting all this time and effort into a 9-to-5 job and it's lighting my fire just a little, is there another way? Can I do something that lights my fire fully and maybe lets me take back more of my life, even than just those couple hours I'd gotten back? To the point where I got a little bit rebellious, and lay in bed thinking, now time out. mankind has been around for quite a while. And if I think there have been all kinds of ways to put food on the table and a roof over our heads that go beyond the old Henry Ford, like 9 to 5, working in the factory, Johnny Paycheck type approach.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then, Keith, what if you wipe more rules off? Because now all of a sudden you don't have to be in the office. What if you don't have to work for a company? What if some guy like you who's never been an entrepreneur before can figure it out? Your parents didn't teach you. You weren't born into it. You weren't handed the family business. No one you know is an entrepreneur. Everybody works for somebody else. Are you smart enough to figure this thing out? And if you were, what would your life be like? And you start asking these questions, right? So COVID had me questioning these assumptions. And once you start asking those questions and realizing, hang on, I can design this life if I want to, if I'm brave enough, I can opt out of this safe corporate mechanism and I can build something of my own. I think I want to try that. And I did.
No, that's awesome. And so now you started to have these seeds are planted, right?
Yeah.
And so now you're having these conversations with yourself. You're answering some of the questions that you've been asking yourself. And so now, but obviously you're still in that role. So how did having this revelation start to then affect the relationship with the job that you were at the time?
Yeah, it's interesting. So, and I teach this to my clients, right? Serve your employer highly. We are not going to do poorly by them. In fact, you get more effective, right? You start your side hustle and it's like, okay, I'm going to get really good with time management. I'm going to get really good. And a lot of times side hustlers perform better in their job. So I think I started to perform really highly. I learned how to be a little bit more detached, right? I actually matured because I was doing my own thing on the side. But I'd be lying if there wasn't a transition, right? Where as I did what I enjoyed, and I got to do it a lot more, and that was coaching and helping people grow, that I, over time, fell out of love more and more with the corporate job and continued to feel like, all right, there's some pressure building up here because I can't honestly continue to say I'm showing up with my full self if I've got this other thing going on. It's starting to make money and some tension is starting to build. In fact, I had a timetable when I really decided, and I'm starting my side hustle and the goal is actually to exit. And I gave myself 6 months. And as I got closer and closer to that 6 months and all the little things I said had to happen actually started happening, it got really uneasy because you're sitting in these meetings and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to be here for next year's strategic plan. I'll help you with the strategic plan. This is in my head, right? But I might not be here to help you deliver it. And so you wrestle. Someone who's a good person, you wrestle with the fact that when it comes down to it, you're paid every 2 weeks, right? And that's kind of the deal. They could fire you anytime, which also means you're allowed to quit anytime. But that's hard, right? Because I loved the people I worked. I cared deeply for a lot of the people I worked with. And not being part of that team anymore was going to be a big jump. I had a total panic attack. I mean, I really freaked out as that timetable shrank down. And my coach would sit across from me and say, you promised yourself you would resign if all these things were true by this date. Mm-hmm. And all those things came true. What are you going to do?
Wow.
I guess I got to resign. Right. Oh, no, I got to resign.
Talk about holding yourself accountable, right?
Yeah, it's what I do to my clients too. It's in the it's like, oh, Keith, if I make $10,000 a month and I have $100,000 in the bank by September, I'll quit. And then they laugh and they get off the phone. Mm-hmm. And then it's the middle of August, and I'm like, how's that checklist look? Mm-hmm. I don't want to talk about that checklist. Everything's checked off, isn't it?
Right. You
have to leave yourself with no choice because our brains are going to do a number on us. Right? When we leave that safety of that biweekly paycheck. I'll tell you what, on that other side of that perceived safety is such a sense of freedom and empowerment. You never want to go back. Right. It's really cool.
Right. And so now this comes to a head, right? And you're checking off all the boxes. And now after being in this COO role for what I saw, keep me honest, but a little over a year, right? Yeah. You decided, look, it's time to leave in 2021. And now, so ultimately, as the show indicates, so why did you leave your job during the pandemic?
I tell people that, in fact, I was on a call with an amazing guy just before this call. So you've got to want it. And I don't mean want in a very vague way. You have to have a vision for your life that you can feel viscerally the difference in what it will be like if you succeed. And for me, I didn't want anybody telling me where I needed to be and when. I wanted full control over my calendar, full control over my time. There's a front porch right in front. On the other side of this laptop is my front porch, and I wanted to be able to sit on it in the Carolina sun whenever I wanted to. And I wanted to be able to go get my hair cut at 10 o'clock on a Monday and have lunch with a friend, at 3 o'clock on a Thursday, because I got 80 years on this planet, give or take, and they're going by pretty quickly at this point. I'm 48. I don't want to have to wait till I'm 65 to start living. So I painted a really vivid picture of what my days would be like and how I would spend my time and how I'd be able to serve others and serve my family. And when you paint that picture and you want it bad enough, I tell my clients, you'll walk through walls to get it. But if you just want it a little bit, or it's a vague picture, you're probably not going to stick with it. You might quit, right? And year 1 and year 2 out of corporate are no joke. I mean, I had rough patches. Right. And ups and downs. That's why I've got so many coaches in my corner to keep me buffeted, right? I'm in the middle of year 2, and it's everything I thought it would be and more. It's really, 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 it's really cool. And I don't think I could ever go back at this point. I'll never say never, but it's totally worth it.
No, that's great to hear. And that's a good transition into, so you make this decision and you're having these feelings. And so tell us a little bit more about how this decision impacted you.
So it's funny, so let's be really honest here, because you might think, oh, he had all the edges, he had this, that, or the other, right? So I'm in recovery. So I started my life over 11 years ago with not a dollar in my pocket, no car, no home, nothing, right? And so I've been rebuilding for 10 plus years. I did not have a huge savings account. My wife doesn't work, so I'm single. I'm the only income. Now I had some things going for me, a good degree, a good experience, some good skills, but it wasn't like this was an easy decision. So when I talked to my wife about it, I trust you implicitly. I just don't want to notice anything change. Like, bills should continue to get paid on time. We should be able to put food on the table. As long as the lifestyle is a nice, smooth transition, she said, you'll just be around more, and hopefully you'll be less stressed out. You'll be more available to our kids. And it's funny, what hasn't changed is really anything from the outside. We live in the same house. We drive the same cars. We're going on a couple more vacations than we used to, though.
All right.
But otherwise, I'm present more. I get to coach my son's soccer team. I get to get my son, he's 4. I get him out of bed in the morning and have cereal with him. I can pick him up at the end of the day. I can take him to doctor's appointments. I've got a 14-year-old stepchild, and I'm there for them and able to help them and go to their recitals and their graduations. And the job never gets in the way of how I want my life to go. I've got big dreams, right? I want to continue to grow my business, so maybe more things on the outside will look different. And the other thing that changed was sort of the way I walk through life. I actually walk a little slower now. All the work I've had to do to be able to handle the pressure of being an entrepreneur has made me a better father. It's made me a better husband. I was talking to someone the other day, and they said, you want to grow? Get married. You have to grow, or start a business. I would add a third, become a parent.
Yeah.
If you want to get good at those 3 things, a good business owner, a good parent, a good spouse, it's gonna make a person out of you really, really fast. And so I've learned to appreciate, like, every day. We took a beach trip, which, again, new for me, not something my blue collar family ever did, right? Renting a beach house. And here's me, picture me just walking in the sand with a big smile on my face, just walking circles. What is that guy doing? No one would say, oh, he's super present and in the now. But you want to know what I was? I was super present and in the now. I was enjoying the hell out of that sand under my feet because I had earned it.
That's
because
awesome.
I had made that picture and taken 10 family members down there. It's an incredible feeling. My therapist, I'm a big therapy fan. She said, as you do this work, as you do the inner work required for you to maintain this business, life is going to take on new hues. You're going to see more colors you're going to feel more alive and it's going to be more vivid. And I'm telling you 1,000%, right? Disconnecting from that biweekly paycheck, putting yourself out there every day to put food on the table and serve your clients. I feel more alive than I've ever felt.
No, that's great to hear. You posted something the other day. It was like a photo of your son on the beach about, like what it's all about. And that resonated with me. I have a 6 and a 4-year-old, right?
Nice.
And I thought, as I'm looking at one of the photos of them on the beach, and I thought about you when we just mentioned your story, because, when you think about it, that like, what else are we doing this for? It's such a beautiful thing. And so I appreciate you sharing that. So now talk to us a little bit about, and you've been, kind of telling us a little bit throughout our conversation, but what are some of the things that have happened since you left?
Things that have happened, good things, bad things, anything?
Anything.
Yeah. So I think what's fascinating, the way I approach entrepreneurism is your business it's really a mirror of what's going on inside. And it's funny, your sales are down or your clients aren't happy. There's a lot of external fixes, but for me, it's been about the internal fixes. So I was real confident going into year 2. I had a really solid year 1. I look back and I'm really happy. And so I think, 2022 starts and it's going to be crazy. It's going to be so good. And my first couple months of this year were off. They were just off. Sales were not where they needed to be. And I was like, damn, that doesn't make any sense, right? The momentum should just carry over. But I had some stuff inside of me I had to tackle. Like got back into therapy and rehired my coach. And it's funny, I did the inner work and now my sales have returned. And I haven't had to change anything about my business. I had to work on me. When you're a solopreneur, there's the nice thing about working for somebody else is there's this big structure. And if I'm sick for a week, that structure is going to continue to make money. But if I'm sick for a week in this structure as it is now, I got to get better because it's really dependent on me. So that roller coaster has been noteworthy and maturing through that roller coaster of big highs and big lows. But what's made a huge difference is I think the mental discipline around planning what you want your life to be like and designing your business backwards from that. You asked what's happened. What happened was I committed to having a week off every month of this year. Sounds crazy, right? 12 weeks of PTO. But I said that's what I wanted. And I also said I didn't want to work on Mondays and I want Friday afternoons off. And then I designed my business backwards from that for the rest of the year. And then the first 2 months, I struggle, but I kept taking that time off. I kept not working on Mondays. I held to the life that I wanted to live doggedly and demanded that my business sort of heal and deliver the ability for me to have that kind of life. And now it's doing that. It takes such intestinal fortitude to pull this off. And you have to be so resilient because the world is going to keep knocking you down. And I firmly believe that there is no failure. If you keep trying, you will figure this thing out. And so the perks have been amazing, like taking a first class flight to go visit a client and renting a beach house for my family, going to Disney with my family, doing things that the Johns family just never did. But some of the coolest things that have happened, I use this little voice communication app called Voxer, and it's how I talk to my clients. And I'm telling you about feeling a little off early in the year. And I let one of my clients in on that. And I just told her, I said, I'm struggling. Gosh, it's been rough. And I told her that not to get her empathy or sympathy, because I want her to know that's part of it. It's part of it and everything's going to be okay. And she left me a message on Voxer and she was crying. She said, don't you ever give up. Don't you ever quit doing what you're doing, because you are changing lives. You changed my life and you're changing other people's lives. And I was talking to my coach about that. She said, Keith, I want you in all humility to look back at all your clients, from your very first career coaching clients all the way up through the entrepreneurs you coach now. And in your mind, I want you to go to each one of them and tell them you're not going to be a coach again. So you're going to quit because it's gotten too hard. What do you think they're going to say to you? And I'm crying and I'm saying, they're going to tell me not to quit. Because each one of them, if you ask them, would say, Keith changed my life. And does that make me special or unique? No, it means I did the work to find my purpose, and I show up in these people's lives in a way that transforms them. So it's my duty. There's a book by Michael Singer. It's called The Surrender Experiment. And he talks about how he was pulled by the universe to do what he was put on this earth to do, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it wasn't easy. And so I'm following my purpose, and it also happens to be my passion. And when it gets difficult, it's my clients that pull me through. And I think that's the coolest thing that's happened again and again and again, is hearing how I've been able to help people. That's been the most rewarding piece of the whole journey.
No, that's really great to hear. And now kind of stepping into now this whole process of transitioning into full-on entrepreneur, solopreneur. Now, what have you learned about yourself throughout this process?
Oh, man. What's funny, I faked my faith early on. I don't mean faith religiously. I mean faith that I was going to pull this off. Because you kind of got to like say, yeah, I'm going to do this. Yeah. And you lay in bed going, I don't think I can do this. Until you get to a point where I think you can look back, like I can over a year and a half, and go, okay, this is how it is. And I've made it this far. At this point, I really do believe that my success is inevitable and that I can teach people how to do this too. And if they want it bad enough, their success is inevitable. I think I finally feel like my skin fits and I'm aligned with what I'm supposed to be doing, and that the world is just going to continue to produce an amazing life for me if I continue to do this work. So at this point, I've realized I'm going to be okay, that my family is safe, that I'm safe, that the money's going to keep coming. Now, I may have to pivot. I may have to change strategy. I may have to do new things, but I can make this work. I do have what it takes. I finally feel really confident in that no matter what happens, you're not going to knock me down. I'm always going to be able to get back up. I also believe that the best is yet to come, that I'm just scratching the surface of the impact I can have, not only in my life, my family's life, but in the lives of others. And I think that's exciting. I talked about my recovery. I mean, at some point, I would love to help people in recovery become entrepreneurs, because they often have bad things on their background checks, right? So at some point, I think I'm going to be called to an even higher level of service where I can help people even more than I am today. And that's exciting.
That's very exciting. And that last piece you mentioned, don't lose that, right? Because I think there's definitely something there, right? And you've touched on a few of those things around the background check. And look, it may not be pretty, but those folks can continue to provide some form of value in whatever it is that they're passionate about. So definitely, if coming from me, just don't lose that one, because I think you got a really good idea there.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And so now tell us, we started the show talking a little bit about your naming your company. So tell us a little bit more about Keith Allen and Company and the mission.
Yeah, so it's constantly evolving. And so when I tell you where I'm at today, I want people to know that your idea can change often. My first idea was leadership training for product managers in tech. And I sold that one time to one person and realized it was the wrong product, and immediately shifted to performance coaching, to life coaching, to career coaching. And that was my proof of concept that got me out of corporate. But as soon as I got out of corporate, I realized that wasn't in alignment. I wanted people to have a life of freedom like I had. So I needed to make more entrepreneurs. So I work with people over a 6-month period. We design a proof of concept business, take it out and validate it in the market, and make our first sale. If you can make your first sale, then you've got something. And then we just have to find more customers to make enough revenue so that you can replicate your 6-figure salary just like I did. And you can actually do that scary thing and tender your resignation. So right now, I would love to be able to say that I'm going to help 1,000 people exit corporate. I'm just getting started. I'm about a year in. I've had a couple people that are able to exit. It's been really exciting to watch their experience. And I've got a whole line of other people right behind them that are on their way as well. Not everyone's going to make it, right? It's not easy. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of internal change. But I want to give people who had the same sort of intuitive tickle that says, can't I live life differently? Can't I be in charge of my time and my schedule? Can I set a different example for my kids? I hear a lot of my clients say that. I wanted my son and my stepkids to be able to look at me and say, oh, I don't have to work for somebody. I can be around all the time. I mean, I want my neighbors to wonder if I even have a job. It's kind of my goal. He just sits on the front porch and with his laptop all day. I wonder what he's doing.
Right.
He was pretty successful. And that's my mission. I want people to have options. It doesn't mean that working in a company is terrible. I'm sure it's perfect for some people, but I think some people are wired differently. And I want them to know that there's a way to design your life and design a business that'll fit that life.
That's awesome. And now, what's been the feedback from some of the leaders with whom you've worked?
It's amazing. They're shocked at how tough it is. They're shocked at how rewarding it is. They love the wins. One of my clients who's recently out, he's going to Italy, making his first sort of post-exit trip. And I encourage my clients, start living like that person you dream of. Start being that person now, right? Start living that life now and let the external things coalesce around you. Don't wait for your business to be successful to start acting successful. I think that's what I hear more often than not is the mindset shifts required and the work around your thinking and the work around your energy is such a key part. And no one really talks about that. You can download a program and a set of steps, or you can read a million business books. And it's not going to work because you've really got to do a lot of inside work. And I have some clients who don't make their first sale till 6 months in, and they'll say, you want to know what though? The growth has been amazing, and I know the business is going to take off. But I had to become a new person in order to be an entrepreneur. And I hear that a lot. And that's cool, right? They're growing and they're starting a new business. They're becoming a better person, which is what it's all about.
No, definitely. And just out of curiosity, so could someone extend for more than 6 months?
Yeah. And I think I can say pretty safely all my clients do.
Okay.
Right? Because we build a proof of concept, we get you ready to sell, we make your first sale. Well, what comes next? Now we've got to do 2 through 9 and do it in such a way that you don't simply reproduce another corporate job. I made that mistake. I was six weeks out of corporate, and my coach said, what are your hours? I said, oh, I'm working from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. Said, just like you were before. And I was like, oh, no. Right. So we sat down with the calendar and designed my time better. So you have to know how to scale. You don't just want to have to spend more of your time to make more money. So there's all kinds of different challenges that arise as you succeed. You don't really never have problems. You just upgrade your problems. So most of my clients do sign on for 6 more months. Once you're with me for a year, you're actually an MVP. You're in for life. And I've got a support system to help my clients as long as they need it after they've spent a year with me, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, no, very much so. And so now a part of this show, I'm really interested in the advice that my guests have for others, right? And so when you think about, there could be people out there who could be in similar situations, but really don't know what to do. So what advice would you give to our listeners who may have a similar experience to yours, but really don't know what to do next?
Yeah, for me, coaching has made all the difference in the world. And at an entirely different level, even than your question was asked. I mean, the combination of coaching and therapy to drive your personal and professional growth, unbelievable. I hired my first coach a little more than 3 years ago, and I really didn't know what coaching was. And a lot of people don't know what coaching is. They know it exists, but what role does it play, and is it for me? And oh, by the way, I've got to write this big check. What am I getting back? Oh, I'm getting transformation back. What does that mean? I wish I had had a coach every day of my life since I left college. Like, that's how much I believe in coaching. Coaches show up in your life the way no one else does. They're not a friend or a neighbor or a spouse or a brother or sister. It's a human being who totally has your back in a way where they'll support you, but they'll also call you on your crap. And that's a really powerful place to be in. They don't owe you anything. They owe you the highest level of service possible. So if you're interested in developing yourself professionally or developing yourself personally, go talk to a couple of coaches, get an idea of what sort of outcomes they produce, find one that you click with and work with them. For me, coaching has changed everything. I have invested tens of thousands of dollars. That's what has created the growth for me in my business. The cool part is what coaching does to you as a person, not just the results, such as a new career, a new job, a promotion, a business. That's great. Good coaches change you at a fundamental internal fabric level because they challenge you and push you so much. So if someone's interested in exploring these things, I say start by having conversations with coaches. And when you find one you click with, engage with them. Don't look at it as an expense. A lot of people see, oh, that's just a red number on my budget. It's actually the best investment you'll ever make, because when you invest in yourself and you take your new value proposition to the world, it'll blow the top off the returns you can make.
And now, what more do you think employers could be doing to better support employees during this time?
What a fascinating moment when there's this tension between coming back to the office and not coming back to the office. People got a taste of freedom and they got some of their lives back, and they don't want to give that up. So if I were an employer with an office in Uptown Charlotte, I would be being really, really flexible around people's needs for time for themselves, for time for their family. I would be big on trust and believing that if I hire the right people, they're going to get their work done. They're going to put the effort in, and that flexibility doesn't mean a lack of productivity. What's ironic is we live in this fast-paced, high-tech world, but life hasn't gotten easier for most people. 60 hours a week and long commutes and a huge stress level and this pressure at corporate jobs. It's just not healthy, and it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense that we still have to live that way. So, if I were starting a business, it would be very flexible. I encourage employers to get creative, to let go of some of the control and let your people have lives and trust that they're going to do their work, get their job done, and your business will be better for it.
Absolutely. That's great advice. And now, as you look at this next chapter of your professional life, what's the impact you're looking to have?
I'm looking to touch more lives more effectively every single day. But here's the secret. I think, in America, we're taught to be very unselfish, almost to a fault. Give. Put your kids first. Put your partner first. So I'm also here to say, I'm going to take care of me. I want to have a ton of fun. I want to continue to impact lives and create more entrepreneurs and let people have this life of freedom. But I want to go on adventures. I want to travel. I want to see and do things that I had never guessed I would get the opportunity to see and do. I want to continue to get better as a parent and as a husband. I want to grow to be the best version of myself that I can be and just have a blast while we're here. I don't think to serve others or to be a good person, we have to deny ourselves a really fantastic, fulfilling life. I think it's kind of why we're here. So high level of service to myself and others, and I'm a happy camper.
No, that's great. Keith, this was a really great discussion. I really enjoyed this, and I appreciate you taking some time to speak with me today. Your story, I think, is really impactful, right? And I'm going to just give a plug for your TED Talk that's on YouTube as well for folks to check that out. And I look forward to us also staying connected, and would love for you to share, where can our listeners find and support you?
Yeah, I run a super lean business, so find me on LinkedIn. I don't have a website published yet. I built my business on LinkedIn. I believe in the platform. Look up Keith Allen Johns and send me a DM.
Perfect. So again, thank you for that info. And look, that'll do it for today's episode. Again, I want to thank my guest, Keith Allen Johns, for joining me today. I'll be sure to share his information in our show notes. So I hope everyone has a great week. And Keith, again, it was a real pleasure, and I hope you have a good time.
Thank you.
The Great Resignation, people leaving their jobs in droves. There's a lot of buzz happening in the job market of late. Now, did you or someone you know leave your job during the pandemic and want to share your story? We've been having some really good conversations in this space. So if you're interested, I'd love to have you join the program. If so, here's how you can do it. First, you can email us at hello@whyleft.co. That's hello@whyleft.co, or visit us online at whyleft.co. That's whyleft.co. Look forward to having you join the conversation. Thanks again for listening to Why I Left. Be sure to join us next time for more stories from the Great Resignation. Visit us at www.whyileft.co. That's whyileft.co. And subscribe to the show on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.